Please acknowledge the arrival of our chief guest, Honorable Ajit Niwad Kabral, State Minister for Capital Markets and State Enterprise Reform, as our chief guest. So we would like to begin with the oil lamp, and I would like to invite Honorable Ajit Niwad Kabral to light the oil lamp, and to join Mr. Nandika Buddhipala, President of the National Chamber, Mr. Asela de Oliveira, outgoing President of the National Chamber, Mr. Deepal Nelson, Deputy President of the National Chamber, Mr. Anura Varnakula Surya, Deputy President of the National Chamber, Mr. Gamini Vimala Surya, Honorable Treasurer of the National Chamber, and all the past presidents here, Mr. Sujeev Samravira, Mr. Tilak Disoisa, and Mr. Tilak Godamana. Ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered here for 62nd Annual General Meeting of the National Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka, the ceremonial session. Ladies and gentlemen, let's rise for national anthem. Sri Lanka Mata, Ata Sri Lanka, Namo, 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 Namo. Yang Ladies and gentlemen, we have got special approval from the health authorities to conduct this annual general meeting according to health guidelines. And thank you so much for wearing your mask, and we expect it to be on all the time for the safety of others and for yourself as well. And to begin with today's proceedings, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Mr. Asela de Oliveira, outgoing President of the National Chamber, to speak. Mr. Oliveira is an engineer by profession and Chairman Managing Director of Coolea Group of Companies, having over 40 years experience in handling business, consulting and mentoring. He extended a great service to National Chamber and given the leadership in setting up from Sri Lanka B2B platform, the digital platform, and formally establishing the National Chamber Youth Forum. Over to you, sir.
Distinguished Chief Guest Honorable Nimad Kabral, State Minister for Money and Capital Market and State Enterprise Reform, Excellencies, Senior Government Officers, Past Presidents, Media Personnel, Members of the National Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pleasure that I extend a warm welcome to all of you at the 62nd Annual General Meeting of the National Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka, which is amongst the oldest operating chambers in this country. The National Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka has served the business community for the last 7 decades. It has been an honor and privilege for me to have served in this illustrious chamber as President for the past 2 years. As President, I would like to highlight some of the significant activities of the chamber. During this period, the entire country was down with the COVID-19 pandemic situation, and this affected our activities significantly. The National Chamber had to limit most of regular activities due to this situation. In the year 2020, we had to postpone our mid-year healthcare exhibition, the National Business Excellence Awards ceremony, and the Western Province Entrepreneurship Award ceremony for the first time in the last 15-year history. However, we carried out many seminars such as Foreign Exchange Act and New Changes, the seminar on tax amendments, import and export proceedings, etc. Some of these had to be conducted in line with due to the restrictions imposed by the health authorities. However, we were able to initiate a very futuristic project during this time by introducing a B2B digital platform to find market opportunities for Sri Lankan exporters named FromSriLanka.com, which is based on the similar lines at Alibaba. This B2B buyer and seller connectivity platform is aimed at supporting Sri Lankan companies to promote their products and services to global buyers. Sri Lanka has been at the center of the global trade for centuries. And the platform will help in a shift in the way it's going to conduct exports where SMEs are concerned. What really promoted us to look in this direction is that the SMEs in Sri Lanka contributed only to about 4 to 5% of the exports of this country, when about 75% of the business is done by SMEs, employing around 45% of the workforce. We are working closely with the EDB, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and various industrial associations and regional chambers across the country to promote Sri Lankan exports with an objective of generating roughly about 1 billion worth of new exports within the next 2 years. Already this platform has received increased interest from potential exporters around the country. It is catering to a range of over 900 products and service types, from tea, rubber, coconut, spices and Ayurvedic items, apparels, gemstones and furniture, as well as services such as software development to BPO solutions. We hope to host thousands of Sri Lankan manufacturers and the service providers, enticing millions of global buyers. The platform also hosts a wide variety of other services for international buyers, such as product sourcing support, testing and inspection services, partnered with the world's leading inspection, verification, testing and certification companies. Actually, I'm also surprised with the response we have already received, even during this pandemic time. And I think this should be carried forward, because we need to export most of the things that are produced here. And we'll be helping that also in many ways, which I will tell. We introduced another novel idea of a youth forum to the National Chamber with the intention of providing an opportunity for aspiring young managers and second generation CEOs working in their parents' businesses to come together, bringing new ideas and professionalism to the Sri Lankan marketplace. Most youth movements do not have an internal structure which facilitates to manage their own structure. The NCCSL will provide this facility to them. They will inject new thinking and management skills to our rural industries by working with the many regional chambers to improve their skills, packaging and introducing standards in helping to export their product, as well as to improve the quality of the products to be sold locally. Most of the problems with the small SMEs that they don't have the they must be introduced to better packaging and standards, that their products should be standardized. The National Chamber of Commerce Youth Forum, NCCYF, had its inaugural annual general meeting on the 30th January 2020. Given the current situation faced globally due to the spread of the epidemic, the NCCYF identified one of the most important and timely issues faced by many employees and organizations. By organizing a seminar on working from home, no sooner they formed this group. We have carried out many SME development activities, even with all these difficulties, during the last 2 years in various districts and provinces, and continue to work and introduce SME development activities. Some of the organized events were held at the Sabaragamu Chamber of Commerce, Anuradhapura District Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture, Galle District Chamber of Commerce, Ampara District Chamber of Commerce, Kurunegala District Women Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agribusiness, Kampa District Chamber of Commerce, Kegol District Chamber of Commerce, Hambantota District Chamber of Commerce and Industry. It is very important to note that there were plans to introduce National Single Window and Trade Information Portal. I am happy to note that this has been implemented to some extent and is functioning under the Department of Commerce. It is vital to implement the single window idea, increasing cross-border efficiency, which will finally help the development of exports and other industries in the country. I wish to commend the policies adhered to develop local industries and having a good methodology for import substitution. I also appreciate the government effort to maintain consistency in taxation policy framework commenced last year with the introduction of certain tax cuts and relaxations. I am happy to note that the proposal reflected under agriculture, local dairy, industry, fisheries, plantation, etc. Together with the wide spectrum of tax exemptions extended by the government would encourage SMEs of Sri Lanka, where the National Chamber has a high level of representation. It is important to note that as a country we need to look at the empowering the skilled workforce with the intention of increasing productivity levels, quality of the output of the local entrepreneurs, which will lead to more business opportunities. Our chamber tend to maintain close relations with the government bodies, that is the Sri Lankan Export Development Board, Department of Commerce, Ministry of Industry and Commerce, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Health and other institutions, and is often invited to participate at special meetings and forums on policy matters, on trade. Further, the Chamber assists the membership in taking up their business issues with the relevant government authorities and acts on their behalf to sort out business issues faced by them. One of the most recent issues was the relief requested on the sugar tax issue. We have also initiated a project to write the history of the National Chamber and engage one of our past Secretary Generals to commence work on this project. We have a very proud history and I think it should be noted down and given to our future generations. We have a proud history in sharing the way of business and commerce of our country since attaining independence in 1948. I was also able to refurbish our premises and facilities to enable us to serve our members better with more facilities and added services. We have requested an additional piece of land from the railways to extend our car parking facilities, which I think will be granted very soon. The National Chamber supports all national issues and new development initiatives, taking a non-political view. We do everything possible to make our members' businesses competitive, productive, and sustainable to play a key role in the development of the economy of Sri Lanka by working with all stakeholders. In conclusion, I would like to thank the government ministries, diplomatic missions, private institutions, and others who helped the Chamber in numerous ways. I extend a special thank you to members of my executive committee who have been so supportive in guiding me and leading many of the initiatives that the chambers have carried out. Their continuous guidance and the drive has made all the difference. I also thank the chamber secretarial staff and all our member companies for their kind support and goodwill extended. Once again, I must say that I am honored to have served as the 33rd president in one of the most respected and highly recognized chambers in this country. And with a sense of pride, I hand over the responsibility to our next president, Mr. Nandika Buddhipala, a respected professional who will carry on the mandate of this chamber, and I offer my congratulations to him. As I step down, I wish the National Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka to move ahead from strength to strength in the years to come and attain greater heights. I thank all of you for your presence today and wish you all a pleasant evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your speech. That was our 33rd President of the 34th President of the National Chamber. And now I would like to, as per the proceedings, I would like to invite the new President of the National Chamber, Mr. Nandika Buddhipala. Let me formally read his profile. Mr. Nandika Buddhipala is the Chief Financial Officer of the Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC since January 2008. He has over 30 years experience in audit and assurance, telecommunication and banking industries. He is alumni of KPMG, having worked at Colombo, Maldives and Oman, and joined telecommunication sector where he worked mainly in CFO capacity before joining banking sector. His involvement in fundraising projects such as coordinating the Straight Finance project from Zero Money in 2003 and first ever international bond issue of Sri Lankan corporate in 2004 were noteworthy mention. After joining Commercial Bank of Ceylon, he was involved in mobilizing investor relations efforts conducted by CSC, SEC and CBSL and various other funds such as Credit Suisse, CLA, IIFL, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Citibank, Orchid Crescent, and EFG Herman, etc., held in India, Oman, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, UK, and USA, etc. He was the alternate chair and the chairman of the National Conference Technical Committee during 2012-2015, chairman of the Professional Accountant in Business Committee, and was a member of various other committees including International Financial Reporting, Interpretation and Implementation Task Force of CS Sri Lanka. He has been serving the Council of ACCA and ACCA Sri Lanka branch over 15 years and was the president of ACCA Sri Lanka during 2008 to 2010, whereas serving as the current chairman of the member network panel as well. He has been serving the ACCA Global Forum for Education along with senior academics throughout the world. Mr. Buddhipala has been a visiting lecturer and a guest lecturer mainly at postgraduate level subject areas such as auditing, management, accounting, economics, finance, strategy, corporate governance and risk management, etc. at various Sri Lankan government universities. He served as an external member of the faculty board of the Faculty of Business Studies and Finance of the Ministry of the University of Myanmar, and currently serve as an external faculty board member to the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce of University of Sri Jayawardena. Mr. Buddhipala has been serving the National Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka at various capacities as council member, chairman of Banking and Financial Services Committee, member of the Management and Finance Committee, chairman of the National Business Excellence Awards Technical Committee, and chairman of the committee and chamber fiscal proposals to the government, and now he has reached the president position of the National Chamber. He has been serving as a member of National Advisory Committee of Chartered Institute of Securities and Investment in Sri Lanka branch since 2011, and member of the Advisory Committee of Colombo School of Business and Management. He was also a member of Sri Lanka Accounting and Auditing Standards Monitoring Board, and he is a fellow member of CA and CMA of Sri Lanka
ACCA UK, CMA Australia, Senior Associate of Financial Services Institute Australia, and a member of CISI UK, IMA USA. He holds BSc and postgraduate diploma in management from University of Sri Jawaharlal, MBA, MA in financial economics, and MSc in financial mathematics from University of Colombo. He is currently studying for his MSc in artificial intelligence from the University of Monaco. Mr. Buddipala recognized as an ACCA and Menazar Region Best Advocate in 2017 in Glasgow, and recognized by CMA in Colombo for Professional Excellence Award in 2015. So we would like to hear from you.
First of all, thank you very much for a very, very long introduction. And Honorable Minister Ajit Nivard Kabral, State Minister, Money and Capital Markets and State Enterprise Reforms and former of Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Excellencies, diplomatics, community, government officials, international agencies, business community, distinguished invitees, members of the National Chamber, and print and electronic media representatives. Welcome to the 62nd AGM of the National Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka. I would like to thank Honorable Minister Ajit Nivard Kabral, the State Minister, for accepting our invitation to be our chief guest and appreciate your presence here today. Knowing it's kind of a difficult time, and there again, not only health-wise and a lot of other commitments and complications, but in the midst of all that, thank you very much for coming to grace this occasion, sir. I'm honored to be elected as the 34th President of this prestigious chamber. I joined the chamber during the time Mr. Sunil Vijay was the President of this esteemed organization, and still, even today, I have the pleasure in working with him. He has been the chairman of the Private Judges, whereas I have been serving as the chairman of the Technical Committee of the National Business Excellence Awards, which was in fact integrated under the leadership of late Mr. R.D. I can remember going back to the memory lane when I was appointed, meeting, I was invited by my seniors at the bank. I just thought that I'm not going to mention any names of any people, except for the people who are connected to national capital. Otherwise, I'm doing kind of injustice by missing out some of the names of the people who supported. I remember one person said that Mr. Sunil Vijay ordered us to join and represent the chamber. You should go. Then discussion went on, and finally, another senior banker said, no. We have already decided we cannot disappoint Mr. Vijay, you have to go. Both these personalities are the chairpersons of two banks today as we speak, because they have retired from Commission. I assure all of you that I will move forward the good work done by my predecessors to take the chamber to greater heights during the year 2021. The National Chamber was established in 1948, or 70 years ago, with distinguished co-founders from very diverse backgrounds, representing the true cross-section of the Sri Lankan society, with a common objective of assisting local entrepreneurship, fostering patents. We as National Chamber have travelled through thus far with such diversity manifested by our co-founders, while keeping inclusivity at the forefront, and our close affiliation with regional chambers made our inclusivity more meaningful, and I warmly welcome representatives of such chambers who are here with us today. I'm going to go into the details. You can see, as I can remember, page 44 of our annual report gives the details of our footprint into so many regional chambers, which I feel should be the way forward for us to have our affiliations in the rural parts of the country as well as throughout the country rather than sitting only in Colombo. At our chamber today, we work with all 5 generations from traditionalists to Generation Z, and our establishment of the National Chamber of Commerce Youth Forum during the Sukhim Samar Singha's presidency expanded our horizons to include the youngest generation into chamber. I earnestly hope their interaction with our regional chambers moving forward will increase the value addition to the objectives of the chamber. Our vision itself is a clear manifestation of our strong linkage with the SMEs of the country, where we have given special emphasis on the development of micro, small and medium enterprises. In order to achieve our vision, I emphasize that we need to get ourselves out of our traditional domains and need to reach out to micro and SMEs. At National Chamber, we have very strong team supporting each other, and I will be marching towards the almost same council, except for our colleague who has been very close to our hearts and has given leadership to our most important standing committee, that is Employment, Education and Training Committee, Mr. Juan Fernando, managing partner of EY, departing us, and we welcome Mr. Mani Jayasinghe of the party EY, and as well as at the moment C.H. Vinaka President, to fill the vacuum together with Professor Vidyajyothi Lal Chandrasena joining us as the Health Sector Advisor Chamber today. There again, it's only the mention of the people who are departing only one person, and joining in other two. All the details we have in the annual report, I'm going to mention in the other areas. When you look at our snapshot of the global economy, year 2020 had been very critical period for Sri Lanka as well as the world's economy. As a result of COVID-19, global activity is estimated to have contracted 4.3% of GDP in 2020, making current crisis as the 4th most severe global recession of the past 150 years, exceeded only by First World War, the Great Depression, and the Second World War, according to the Global Economic Prospects, published January 2021 this year. It is estimated that working hours equivalent to 495 million jobs were lost during the second quarter of 2020, amounting to 40% of the world's entire workforce, and only half were expected to be recovered by the end of this year, according to the ILO and World Bank. Global economy is estimated to have contracted by 4.2% in 2020. However, disruptions from pandemic in the majority of emerging markets and developing economies were more severe, resulting in deeper recession and slower economies. However, after sharp contraction in 2020, it is expected that the global growth will bounce back in 2021. Aftermath of COVID-19, global economic outlook is expected to grow at 4%. That's kind of the positive sign. 4% during 2021. However, expected to grow at slower level than pre-pandemic growth levels even during 2022. The negative impact emanating from pandemic is expected to hinder investment and human capital in emerging markets, eroding their potential growth prospects. It is estimated that the emerging markets growth potential, excluding China, because China has a huge amount of impetus, would be on average 3.5% in 2021, 2022, as a result of slow recovery in consumption and investment. It is expected to reverse the 2 decades of steady global poverty reduction, and the pandemic crisis is projected to push poverty rates back up to the levels of what they had in 2017. Developing and emerging economies that have weaker public health system and larger dependency on the global trade, tourism, foreign remittance and commodity exports will have a tough deal. It will further bring the effects on long-term impacts such as lower investments, human capital erosion, and breakdown of supply chain channels, etc. Coming back to the Sri Lanka economy was gradually recovering from the severe impact of the Easter Sunday attacks in 2019 when we had hit from the global pandemic. The tourism and related sectors were saddled with the serious impact with the closure of airports, which was quite unavoidable. The situation was even made severe with more and more Sri Lankan employees wanted to return back, which had an impact on private remittances. The government was forced to limit imports with the intention of saving of flows of US dollars, a considerable amount of road repayment that we had to go through during year 2020 and move forward. As a strategy to face the difficulties, Central Bank of Sri Lanka introduced many measures to reduce interest rates, enhance market liquidity, manage foreign exchange flows, maintain exchange rate stability and preserve international reserves, maintain financial system stability, and so forth. Low interest rates reduced the burden on the enterprises who were facing various difficulties, while announced debt moratorium and working capital loan schemes also provided concessions to business and individuals. As some research agencies highlighted that the domestic debt, which is estimated to have around 50% of the total debt burden of the government, used to attract more than 70% of the total interest cost of the government. Therefore, we infer that keeping local interest rate down would not only help the local enterprises to facilitate sustainability of their businesses, but it will help the government to manage their burden as well. Another research report published by HSBC quite recently, maybe 2 weeks ago, Global Research HSBC, predicts that Sri Lanka will bounce back impressively, and in fact, that is the biggest upgrade to their forecast they made recently. They further observed that mainland China, Taiwan, Vietnam, and Korea, as well as Sri Lanka, has seen among the fastest increase in shipments, with others lagging behind. They expected the mainland China, Sri Lanka, and Taiwan, Vietnam would start 2021 either at or above the level of activity before breakout of pandemic. They expect Sri Lanka GDP is likely to grow by an astonishing amount. Nobody has said so, I think so far. By 7% year on year, 2021, largely due to the base effect since they estimated 5% drop in GDP during 2020. The CBSL policy rate cut by 250 basis points, bringing down the standard lending facility rate, SLFR, to 550, has been fully transmitted to lending rates easing off by 280 basis points. Yeah, again, I'm extracting from this particular research report. However, they are of the view that the public debt sustainability is amongst the biggest risks for Sri Lanka for the next 5 years. Even rating agencies, including Fitch, in their report on September 8, 2020, estimated GDP growth for 2021 as 4.7%, whereas 2020 they estimated -3.7%. Then the Moody's, who have downgraded us by 2 notches, September 29, 2020, they estimated GDP growth of growth in 2021 as 3.6%, whereas 2020 they estimated minus growth of 3.2%. However, all these reports express their concerns regarding Sri Lanka debt sustainability and the government revenue collection targets. The understanding of the economic behavior has been challenged by current developments, such as the dominant currency paradigm. I'm not going to go into the details of some of the discussions, and the spillover effects of the dominant currency. Then this one resolve kind of behavior when it comes to exchange rates, which we normally discuss maybe once or twice at our council meetings. And I saw a huge amount of receptive comments coming through for that, and expecting to have these particular discussions for us to not to come into conclusions about the economy, but to have understanding how vulnerable or how the other forces which are beyond our control is having firm control on our economy. My just I'm moving into SME development. Micro, small and medium enterprises have been hardest hit by COVID-19. According to the Global Risk Report 2021, SMEs are often collectively the largest employment in a country. In China, for example, they generate 80% of the employment, and estimated 80% of the companies in China went bust during February and May. In the United States, 20% of firms with fewer than 500 employees closed permanently between March and August. Many that survived the initial lockdown remain dependent on the state support, the result of continuing restrictions and decreased consumer confidence. Similarly, in Sri Lanka, the main driving force of the economy is considered to be SMEs. Approximately 70% of the enterprises in the country can be classified as SME, and they provide approximately 40% of the employment in the country in diversified sectors, ensuring growth and contributing 52% to the GDP. In all these statistics, the important thing is what we are going to do to support it. It is noted that many SMEs do not use latest technology and having limited access to finance due to collateral not being available, but SMEs are not directly connected to markets, specifically in the case of exports. In developing or developed economies, SMEs are playing a crucial role by contributing to the economy, be it is business numbers, export growth, employment generation, output growth, or contribution to the supply chain, etc. Almost there. In recent years, the trading atmosphere, such as global value chain and the information technology revolution, are offering more and more opportunities to SMEs to integrate and remain in the global economy. There again, I'm just taking it very, very short. When it comes to SMEs, what we are trying to do for them, that's the one which is going to be important. To this end, National Chamber has been very close to SMEs. Our vision statement has given special emphasis to MSMEs, and offering helping hand to SMEs has been our one core element of values. We have been continuously involving SME development activities, and there is many programs to assist small and medium entrepreneurs to develop their businesses. National Chamber, together with many government and non-governmental agencies and financial institutions such as banks, continue to encourage entrepreneurship in the country, with many regional activities being organized in provinces, specifically our collaboration with the regional areas. Western Province Entrepreneurship Awards, as a mentioned, scheme for the entrepreneurs of the Western Province, which was held continuously from 2016 to date, as requested by the National Enterprise Development Authority, which opens a path for micro and small enterprises to reach national level standards and compete with larger scale of business ventures, ultimately through our flagship event, the National Business Excellence Award. That's the kind of objective that we have, to have these kind of things open in regional areas and to invite them to mainstream gradually and assisting them throughout their journey. Then moving into trade information portal and the national single window. As a result of closure of entry points to countries, global trade collapsed last year, and supply disruptions impacted the international production of goods and services. It is observed that the goods trade went more sharp, more rapidly, and recovered more swiftly than during the global financial crisis that we observed in 2008. But unfortunate thing is service trade remains dangerous. But we know as an economy we have about 60% coming from the service sector, so we need to be mindful of that. Then, it is expected that the global trade growth would experience a strong recovery, averaging nearly 7% over 21 and 22. So it's a good phenomenon. So we need not to be kind of looking at the depression and saying that it is only depressed by 10%, 9%. We look at moving forward. All this data, including rating agencies who have downgraded us, saying that even Sri Lanka has potential. So we look at it and we look at it positively, and we see what we can do as chambers to support that development in the country. So we as National Chamber has been geared up to provide trade promotion services. So it's quite obvious that we are a trade chamber as well. So we will be into that particular domain, irrespective of the fact that we have depression or depressed trade activities. With the volatile global trade and subdued trade volumes, we expect recovery of the trade in the medium term and we encourage import substitution and to manage trade and current account deficit of the country in the medium term. Therefore, we wholeheartedly support the National Trade Facilitation Committee in achieving the ultimate goal of implementing the Trade Facilitation Agreement in Sri Lanka. Then moving to the last item that I'm going to discuss. It is vital for SMEs and micro SMEs in Sri Lanka to access overseas markets through a credible, authentic market platform. By creating such a platform for Sri Lanka, national change and cultural change inculcated in the minds of the people is quite required for Sri Lanka. Therefore, we will continue to develop from Sri Lanka.com in achieving our ultimate goal moving forward. I must place on record my sincere gratitude to my fellow office bearers, council members for their commitment and untiring efforts for making the last year successful. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the invitees, including only one invitee from each institution I have been dealing with. We have to restrict it to that level. So one invitee from each commercial bank, ACCA, CA Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka State Universities by only one person, CISI, Colombo School of Business Management, those kind of institutions might have one. So it's great to see most of them here. And a very special word of thanks to Secretariat of National Chamber for their untiring support and to Australia. This President who weathered through our difficult COVID-19 pandemic period. I wish all the success to Honorable Minister for taking this time to be here, not only time here, but wish him all the success in whatever the endeavor that he is going to carry out. I think as Barack Obama last maybe couple of days back said, his success or the minister's success is going to be the country's success and the economic success. So apart from that, as a friend to the commercial world, so personally also we wish him all the success. Thank you for taking this occasion, Minister. And finally, I think I'm feeling the fact that if I do not mention my wife and the two kids who are not here at the moment, but definitely we are waiting for a very long time. Most of the time when my elder one is small, in the morning she can't see me, but because I used to get out of the place in the morning, I used to come the night when she was sleeping. She just mentioned recently also about it. So thanks all of them for already. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for positive economic insights provided. Now I have the honor of introducing or rather reading the profile of our chief guest today. Honorable Ajit Nimad Cabral is the State Minister of Finance, Capital Markets and State Enterprise Reforms since 12 August 2020. He was the Senior Advisor to the Prime Minister on Economic Affairs from November 2019 to August 2020. Honorable Cabral was also the 12th Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka from July 2006 to January 2015. During that period, he functioned as alternate Governor of the International Monetary Fund, Chairman of the Southeast Asian Central Bank's Board of Governors, and Chairman of SAARC Central Bank Governors Forum. He is a chartered accountant by profession, having qualified as one of the youngest chartered accountants in Sri Lanka, while winning many prizes at CA examinations. During the period he served as governor, he transformed the Sri Lankan economy from GDP of $24 billion to $79 billion and to being safe, stable and fast growing middle income emerging market nation. He also provided leadership to several heavily oversubscribed international sovereign bond issues. Under Governor Cabral's guidance, Sri Lanka was able to maintain sound and stable macroeconomic fundamentals, with inflation being contained to low levels and financial system stability being achieved in time of severe global uncertainties and turmoil. Honorable Cabral was previously the Presidential Advisor of Economic Affairs and Secretary Ministry of Plan Implementation and closely associated in the development of policy framework and development plan of the government. He served on the board of Strategic Enterprise Management Agency and as a member of the government team that participated at the Geneva talks with the LTTE in February 2006. Prior to his state appointments, Honorable Cabral functioned as consultant specializing in business revival, turnarounds, planning and corporate governance, etc. He has also served as president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka and South Asian Federation of Accountants. Honorable Cabral was an Eisenhower Fellow in the year 2000 Multi-Nation Program as well. From 1997 to 1999, he served as the president of St. Peter's College, All Boys Union, while in 2009, he was honored by the Ramanya Mahanikaya with the title of Deshakirti Lankaputra for his outstanding service to the country and the economy. Governor Cabral is the author of the books Towards the Sri Lankan Renaissance, that was done in 2002, Lakmawata Mudukotak in 2004, and the Great Bond Scam Cover-Up, that was done in 2019. He is a voracious reader and an eloquent speaker, and a person with many unique insights and experience. Not only this, we recognized him very recently as a very different talent. I don't know, for me it was very new that I saw. So we are going to share a small video clip with you for you to recognize him differently.
අපි අභිමානය අපි ලෝකෙට ඉස්කරන්න ලෝකෙ අපි පිළිගන්නවා. ලෝකෙ පිළිගන්නවා අපි ලෝකයක් එක්ක බද්ධ වෙලා ලෝකෙ අපි පිළිගැනෙන විදිහට කටයුතු කරනවා. අපේ රටේ යුගයේ ගැන අපි බොහෝ දෙනෙක් සන්තෝෂයෙන් කතා කරනවා. ඒකත් යන්නදලා අපි ඒ විදිහට හැසිරෙන්න ඕනේ. Rasa mataka ausana mantra.
We love that singer. Over to you, sir.
President of the National Chamber of Commerce, the outgoing president, past presidents, and my dear friends. I actually came prepared for speech, but I thought I'll sing a song now. Perhaps that would be it. I'm delighted to be here this evening to see the progress that has been made by your chamber in the last 1 year, as well as to share a few thoughts with you on the strategic direction of the government in the next few years to come. I think your new president enumerated the challenges as well as the achievements of the recent past. But I think one of the most significant parts of this entire year was that we were able to stay stable. The enemy was unknown, and then we had to take some steps which were extraordinary. But at the same time, the resilience of our business leaders, of our entrepreneurs, as well as the country in general, was it could have been much worse. That's the bottom line. But I believe we were able to pull through a very, very difficult year with a reasonably good track record. And I think it's useful for us on and off to reflect on those achievements as well. Your President explained it in detail, so I won't go into it in further depth. But I think what was significant was that even in the worst of times, we were able to maintain our business as well as our macro fundamentals in reasonably good shape. Why do I say that? In the 5 years, 2015 to 2019, our macro fundamentals had taken a reasonable beating. And I must say that we could have achieved a lot more if not for the fact that our foundation was somewhat weak. Our rupee had been depreciating at the rate of around 6.8% per annum for 5 years running, and that was a tough situation to deal with. And on top of that, when we found that our key inflow of foreign exchange was threatened, particularly tourism, you could imagine what kind of a difficulty we would have been facing. We had $8.2 billion in reserves at the end of 2014. My friend Tilak was in the monetary board at that time, would vouch for that. But at the time that we took back the government with only $7.6 billion in reserves, when we should have had around 15 billion, you could realize what kind of a stress we could have been facing, and we were facing. But nevertheless, we'll take some tough measures, and I think many of you understood, although it was very painful for so many people, in the fact that we had to curtail imports. But if we did not do that, the depreciation of our currency would not have been the 2.6% that we finally ended up in the year 2020 with. It could have been a lot more. The prognosis was that good because of those tough decisions. But at the beginning, as soon as COVID struck, many people thought that it was going to be much worse. They would have expected the rupee to do a little further, and many also expected interest rates to rise. But as a government, the strategic thrust of our government was that we wanted to make it as easy as possible for the entrepreneurs as well as businesses and the industries to do their business better. So on that platform, we knew we had to keep interest rates at the lowest level possible so that it would be easier for you to face the risk. There's no greater risk than having to deal with an interest rate of 18-19%, and that would really be the toughest situation for our entrepreneurs to face. I remember when I was a young chartered accountant, we used to prepare feasibility studies for various projects. I'm sure some of you who are here remember as well. We used to factor in a depreciation of the currency of around 10%, which was the norm at that time. Gavini, you don't remember. We used to also say that the interest rates were 18-20%. So many projects became unviable in such macro fundamentals. So if you remember, from 2006 to 2014, one of the key thrusts of the strategy at that time was to maintain those macro fundamentals at reasonable, benign levels. We had to quickly get back to that situation. That's why you would have noticed from 2020, we were determined that those macro fundamentals are brought back, because that is the only way that we can have growth once again in our country. No one can grow if not for the fact that the platform is a stable one and it is a benign one. So even under the worst of circumstances, where we found export stuff, the tourism dwindling, we had some very resilient businesses who did not accept those as the conditions that we should falter on, but rather to build upon. So many people change the strategies. So that is why our exports reduced by only $1 billion in the year 2020. Although many of the rating agencies jumped the gun and thought that we have a much higher deficit as far as our exports are concerned. Because we took the early steps as far as imports were concerned, which did cause some pain, I must admit. The imports reduced by about $3 billion for the year 2020. As a result, our trade deficit was actually lower by about $2 billion than the previous years, which put a very little pressure on the rupee, and that's why we were able to survive the almost zero tourism receipts that we had in the year 2020. Fortunately, the World Bank predictions of the remittances did not hold good, and they originally said that we'll have a 20% reduction in remittances, but we did find that it was actually the reverse, and we had about a 6% increase in the remittances, which was very helpful. So I think the platform is now set with the return of tourism, albeit gradually. We will find that Sri Lanka would once again be in a position to attain that 4 to 5% growth in the year 2021. And we must strive for that, because I believe the platform for our growth in the next 5 years will be based on how we manage the year 2021. That's why it's a vital year. That's why it's a year that we have to work very hard to ensure that our macro fundamentals remain strong, as well as our businesses remain robust, so that we can grow once again to the levels at which we were used to prior to 2015. I'm not in any way saying that's going to be easy. I think you also would have some tough times. We are beginning to gradually take steps to ease certain restrictions that have been placed, but those can sometimes be a little longer than we originally envisaged. You would have noticed that yesterday the central bank also took some steps to ensure that the speculation that was getting a little bit out of hand with regard to the rupee was curtailed. Because I think sooner or later we all will have to realize that we got to go in this boat together without rocking it too much. It's like in a stormy weather, we are all in a small boat which we need to keep carefully to go forward. If one or two people start jumping up and running up and down on the boat, the entire boat can capsize. So the captain has to decide at some stage, look, you have to make sure that everybody stays calm, and sometimes those practices that can be a little bit turbulent within the little boat will need to be curtailed in order that we all have a smooth ride. And that's what the central bank is doing. And I commended them for that, because I believe it's good for all of us to ride together in stormy waters without rocking the boat, so that we will be able to all go towards the journey and have a very peaceful journey. Now, where are we heading? We have set out very clearly in the vistas of splendor in the President's manifesto that we want to reach a level of 6.5% growth. We also want to ensure that our inflation rates stay benign. Now, all these should be good news to you, because your businesses also need to be now centered around that growth story of the government. At the same time, we are keen to ensure that the platform of infrastructure development continues unabated, notwithstanding the tough situation that we are facing. It's going to be tough, but at the same time, public investment will have to be at a reasonable level so that we can ensure that the infrastructure development keeps pace with that of the rest of the world. But we are also opening up the country. We have opened up new areas. The new law for the port city is coming in the next few weeks. That would ensure that recipients of investments can be taken by the country. Already we have had some very good responses. Even though with COVID, there are many people who have come and they are taking up positions, they are talking, they are understanding the level of commitment of the government as well as of the private sector, and we are confident that very soon those investments will materialize in real dollar terms. The Hambantota industrial zone is open. We have already seen one of the massive investments in the tire factory coming in. The iconic towers and the entrance to the port city have already been committed. There will be the new convention center to be built at the port city. All these are going to be big time investments on which the private sector can also take up their own positions in going forward. But at the same time, we don't want to neglect the SME sector. There are many areas that the SME sector needs support. And I think that's where the banks also have to come forward. But I don't think the banks alone would suffice. We need to have equity funds as well. In Sri Lanka, one of the biggest drawbacks for the fulfillment of these dreams has been that there has not been enough capital in our country. I'm happy that the stock exchange is taking the steps necessary to expand the amount of capital available as well as the recipient of capital to be there. But we would want to work closely with that, where there would be new areas for the SME sector to also take up positions in the stock exchange. There can be other types of capital that can come. Equity capital, not only the debt capital, which the banks can provide, but the equity capital, so that the banks also would see that there is a new pool of capital coming into the country. I think at least $2 or $3 billion needs to come in. We're working hard towards that to bring in that fresh infusion of capital into the country. And I'm confident that with those attempts that we are going to put in place, that we would have a new era for Sri Lanka with greater capital, greater opportunities, and greater amount of entrepreneurs being facilitated to do their business. The doing business indicators are being looked at by my ministry as well, and we are going to ensure that Sri Lanka will do better. That's a bit of a difficult task right now with COVID, but at the same time, we want to start on that journey to improve all these ways in which Sri Lanka does business. We have a lot to do. Some cases in our litigation takes 20 years. That day, the Minister of Justice was saying in Parliament that there are cases which have been pending in courts for 20, 22 years. I don't think anyone can do business in such a scenario. So we need to get those into action. More than 6 billion rupees was allocated this year to have new courts, new judges, more cases to be heard quickly so that cases can be disposed. That's just one example of where we have identified the bottlenecks and working towards that to make doing business better in our country. So with that, we are hoping overall that there will be a better private sector. In the public sector also there is a lot to be done. I have taken stock of the situation, and I must tell you that the challenge is formidable. We have about 289 projects that are presently being handled by the government. Those total up to more than 5 trillion rupees, and we need to work on them to make sure that those are delivered on time and on budget. And I can assure you that we are working towards all those goals as well. The last point that I would like to leave with you, which was mentioned by your president as well, is that of the debt. There are many stories concerning the debt of our country, but I can tell you, we have seen worse times. Tilak here would probably vouch for the fact that we did see a lot more stresses during the time when we had several challenges. The global recession, the war in our own country, dollar depreciating and appreciating and fluctuating, oil at $145 a barrel, banks crashing. Those are forgotten. Sometimes people have now forgotten that we had that kind of challenge. But we also made sure that those challenges didn't permeate down to all of you as well. But those were challenges we did face. In 2005, the debt to GDP ratio was 91%. We have forgotten that as well. We are again back at 91%. But even after all those projects that we did and the infrastructure development that happened and the way our country moved forward, in 2014, the debt to GDP level had come down to 70%. So it can be done, but it can be done only with the macro numbers being taken care of. In the last 5 years, the rupee depreciation alone cost Sri Lanka 1.8 trillion rupees, which got added to our debt. The higher interest rates added 1.4 trillion rupees. Already, we have taken care of those two most difficult parts of that equation. So we are on more benign waters, but at the same time, the shock is not over. We have to go through some pain. We may have sometimes curtailed some projects that we had originally committed ourselves to, but we are doing that with the intention of getting back to normal once we are stronger. We got to be strong first in order to attend to some of the area that we are working on. Even when you get into the aircraft, they tell you in case there is a reduction in the air pressure, these nice masks will fall. Of course, today we all have masks. But when the masks fall, they say, first wear yours before you attend to your child's. So you got to be strong first. So as a country, we got to look after our macro fundamentals, become strong, then we can look after the rest of the people who are not in that kind of shape as right now. We have only 53% of the people of our country having water on tap. We have 47% more to go. And that's one of the commitments that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has given to the people of our country. And we are working on that. We need to make sure that those are delivered. We also need to make sure that the 100,000 kilometers of road in all parts of the country are developed. And that's another commitment we have given to the people. We've got to work on that. 14 districts out of the 25 districts of our country have a human-elephant conflict. And that can be a huge stress for the people in those areas. And it is a great stress. We've got to deal with that too. So these are the other factors, other than the business factors that we have to deal with, because once we get the businesses right, we've got to make sure that our country's people are also cared for and looked after. So there's a lot of challenges, but I'm glad to see you all committing yourselves to the growth of our country, to the growth of your companies, and I would want to congratulate all of you for the attempts that you have made to take us forward in that fashion. So I want to congratulate the incoming chairman as well as the incoming committee and wish you all success and hope that together we can go on this journey so that we can truly bring prosperity to our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving the economic insight into government roadmap. The business community was seriously awaiting for your information. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now getting into a very special moment. We are going to appreciate a special person who has extended a valuable service, great service to the National Chamber. That is none other than Mr. Asel Rivera, outgoing President of the National Chamber. We are offering a token of appreciation, sir. We would like to invite Honorable Nimad Cabral to take this occasion to present this special appreciation award to Mr. Asel Rivera.
Thank you very much, all of the Open Committee. I really appreciate this gesture. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will take few minutes to see who have been giving leadership to National Chamber all this time. We came into being in 1948, 72 years history. We have had 34 presidents leading the chamber, eminent business leaders. We are going to show you who these leaders are in very few minutes. Sir Wilfred de Souza, Mr. Robert Parakram Senanayake, Sir Cyril de Souza, Mr. Khalid Abdul Kafur, Mr. J.L.M. Fernando, Senator Justin Kopalawala, Mr. D.L.F. Pedris, Mr. H.R. Fernando, Mr. Roland Manigasunga, Mr. A.E.S. Vijayaratna, Mr. J.A. Lambrughan, Mr. G.S. Chatur, Mr. M. Manoharan, Mr. H.S. De Silva, Deshabandhu Karu Jayasuriya, Mr. L.S. Samarasinghe, Mr. Muni Kundan Mal, Major Douglas Vijay Singha, Deshabandhu Tilak de Souza, Mr. A. Amin Veerasinghe, Mr. Hari Selvanathan, Dr. Chandra Ambudenia, Mr. Ashoka D. Z. Gunasekara, Mrs. Nirmali Samarthunga, Mr. D. Eastwaran, Mr. Chandralal Yalvis, Mr. Ashoka Hettigoda, Mr. Sunil G. Vijay Singha, Mr. Tilak Bodamana, Mr. Sujeev Samravila, and Mr. Asel Rivera. These are the eminent leaders of the National Chamber all this time, ladies and gentlemen. Now we would like to take this moment to show you a very brief video clip. This is from Sri Lanka B2B platform, which was created with the leadership of Mr. Asel Rivera and Mr. Chamika Budamana, Chairman of the Information Technology Committee of the National Chamber, was instrumental in driving this initiative. So ladies and gentlemen, let's watch this video clip very briefly.
Sri Lanka has been at the center of global trade for centuries and is now getting ready for a shift in the new way it does business. Introducing www.fromsrilanka.com, Sri Lanka's one-stop online platform owned and managed by the National Chamber of Commerce. A leading source of services and assistance to businesses island-wide for over 7 decades.
This platform has been designed and produced to find sources in the world market for the Sri Lankan made items. We are confident that in the future it will be helpful for the Sri Lankan producers to find a global market through this platform made in Sri Lanka. We are a family of Ayurvedic physicians with a heritage of over 200 years, manufacturing Ayurvedic products using the abundance of Ayurvedic herbs in Sri Lanka. And I'm very proud to partner from Sri Lanka, taking Sri Lankan products to the world.
Nidara has been manufacturing high-end ceramics for export for the past 52 years. I strongly believe that the From Sri Lanka platform will help the right clients find us. I invite all manufacturers and service providers in Sri Lanka to join up with the platform to expand the opportunities and provide a good basket of products and services for the client services.
I feel that this is the link which Sri Lanka was missing. IT BPM services are booming due to rapid digital transformation happening around the world. We have many service providers and many products that can help the digital transformation. This will be a great platform to showcase our products and our services, and I am confident that I will be able to find more business opportunities using this platform.
Nature Seekers beauty products are really a celebration of Sri Lanka's incredible biodiversity. We're really excited to be part of the From Sri Lanka B2B platform to further expand our exports and to take our brand's values and provenance to the global market.
Sri Lanka has the potential to be a strong supplier in the world. If you are a self-employed entrepreneur, SME, or large-scale business with locally made products or services, we give worldwide buyers an opportunity to connect and do the business with you. Register your company on FromSriLanka.com and let's work together and make the world our marketplace. A marketplace that is 1,000 times our country.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the last part of the annual general meeting, the ceremonial session. I would like to invite Mr. Kavindra Rajapaksa, Honorary Secretary of the National Chamber, for the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everybody. It is a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion of our NCCISL's 62nd AGM. First and foremost, I would like to thank our chief guest, Honorable Ajit Nimad Cabral, State Minister for Money, Capital Markets, State Enterprise Reforms, who, despite his busy schedules, has found time to grace this occasion. Thank you very much, sir, for your participation. We highly value your thought-provoking speech, enlightening chamber members the opportunities in the brand new year 2021, giving us a lot of inspiration and to face how to these challenges, because these challenges are never ever seen in our history of mankind, because this is 2020 was a year which we never thought that would exist at all. I also express my sincere thanks to all the diplomatic missions, all the high commissioners, ambassadors, members of the diplomatic corps who has accepted our invitation to participate for this event despite the COVID pandemic constraints. Thank you very much, sir, for attending. I also express my sincere thanks to all the government officials, especially the Professor Jayantha Kolabage, the Secretary of the Foreign Ministry,
for gracing this occasion. Thank you very much, sir. Also, I would also express my heartfelt thanks to Mr. Aseladi Rivera, our outgoing president, for the enormous contribution he has done towards NCCISR during his tenure. This includes the establishment of the Youth Forum, opening up opportunities for young entrepreneurs, and commencing the Sri Lanka platform, open digital doors for Sri Lankan companies to reach the international arena. This is one of the key projects that during his tenure he has done. So thank you very much for that opportunity. I also thank all the past presidents who have served the NCCISL for their valuable projects executed over the past so many years, which have made the chamber vibrant among all the chambers in Sri Lanka. Name a few: the Business Excellence Awards and the Ayurvedic Health Exhibition is a few. I would also like to welcome our incoming president, Mr. Nandika Buddhipala, who is having a tremendous experience in banking and serving our chamber for so many years. I would like to wish him and the newly elected two deputy presidents, Mr. Deepal Nelson and Mr. Anura Varnakulu Surya and Mr. Gamini Vibra Surya, Honorable Treasurer, and all other committee members, and all the very best for the coming year. My heartfelt thanks go to all the corporate sponsors, print and electronic media institutions, and all the well-wishers. Without them, whom this occasion would have not been a memorable success. Thank you very much. I owe a special gratitude to the National Chamber staff who put day in and day out for their hard efforts of running the chamber for the betterment of the members as well as the country at large. Thank you very much. I would like to make a special pledge now, asking all the foreign diplomatic missions and government officials and the NCCISL members and all the team. Let's work together to make Sri Lanka beautiful, because we have to work with all our mutual understandings, mutual cooperations to the betterment of Sri Lanka. Because Sri Lanka or the world is a small world. With the COVID, we have understood that. Thank you very much again. And also, I'd like to now thank all the members who have contributed in numerous ways to this occasion. Now, I would like to thank you for all the attention to my speech, and now I call upon you to join for the cocktails and dinner. Thank you.